On today's episode of the College Lacrosse Show, we look back on a legendary quarterfinal weekend across the NCAA with four outstanding legendary games, chat about all the twists and turns, and a great weekend for the sport. Then we look ahead to the Final Four, a culmination of everything we've been talking about all year. Should have two excellent games on Saturday, women's D2, D3 on Sunday, and then obviously the championship on Monday. Really looking forward to it. A great episode. Let's get right into it. Episode 16 of the College Lacrosse Show. Let's go. Okay, hello, welcome back. Episode 16 of the College Lacrosse Show. 74 teams start Division 1. I think this is exactly how I started last episode. 4 remain. After a quarterfinal for the ages, a quarterfinal weekend for the ages, we have the Final Four: Cornell, Maryland, Syracuse, and Penn State. And there's a lot to talk about, so let's get right into it. But I think the big takeaway, Dan, a massive win, a massive good weekend for the sport in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, that entire weekend was just loaded. The games were awesome. I was at Hofstra for the 2 games there for Cornell, Richmond, and for Syracuse, Princeton. I'm so happy that I was just in the building for those, let alone there to try and do like a media thing. I was actually talking to Hofstra's SID, Steve Gorchov, afterwards, because he reached out to everybody who was there. He's like, hey, if you guys have feedback on how it went, just let me know. I was like, yeah, try and have some better games next time. I mean, geez. But both those 2 games were all-timers. And then the Annapolis quarterfinals the next day were setting attendance records. And you had like an unbelievable comeback effort from Penn State in their game. And then Maryland-Georgetown was a Maryland-Georgetown game. It was probably the worst of the 4. Not like... I think people are like, the game stunk, but I think it only stunk relative to the fact that we had 3 like all-timers come up before it. But man, like every game there was so good. The weather cooperated. Like you got heroic performances from players you've wanted to get them from. You had just like incredible underdog stories that were pushing all the way through to the last moments of games. I can't remember the last time I was in the building for back-to-back games that good like they were at Hofstra.
Yeah, Cornell's game went pretty much exactly how I thought it was going to go. I thought Cornell would win in the end. Obviously, I was cheering for Cornell, but I knew it was going to be a dog fight. And it's funny, I was talking to my mom on the phone yesterday, and she just saw the score, and she said, Cornell squeaked by or Cornell escaped against Richmond. I said, no, Cornell went 12 rounds, 15 rounds with Richmond, and they came out on top. I didn't feel at all as if that was like we played an inferior, Cornell played an inferior opponent and they just escaped. Richmond is so good, was so good. And then the Princeton Cuse game, we'll talk about all these games more in depth, but I'm just was saying, like, the Cornell game went roughly how I expected. The Maryland game went pretty much roughly how we expected. The other 2 were bonkers, and we'll talk about those in more depth. But the Annapolis thing's been well covered, I think, this week. 17,000. First of all, my depth perception gets all out of whack when the games are outdoors because I play in the NLL. If you showed me those photos, I would have said there was 30,000 people there. Like 17 actually feels low, and I played in a quarterfinal against Maryland in Annapolis, and my freshman year. I probably didn't realize how cool of an experience that was, by the way, to play in that venue. I never got the chance again, and I thought there was 30,000 people there. So when I saw that that crowd looked better than we had, I think, and that it was a record at 17, I was like, oh, okay. I thought there was 30 there when we played. So,
must have been.
Yeah. I would love to see the PLL get back to Annapolis at some point. I'm sure there's a bunch of reasons why we can't, and there's a whole bunch of outstanding venues in the Baltimore, D.C., Annapolis region. And I love playing at Homewood too. So I'm not like trying to say anything controversial. I just love the opportunity to play. Yeah. The other thing I'll say is, I think people go, Annapolis is close to DC. It's close to Maryland. It's close to these kind of lacrosse powerhouses. Annapolis is its own lacrosse powerhouse now. Like the St. Mary's kids, the Spalding kids are everywhere. the county, like Annapolis, I think is the highest hometown count of any team. And also you have this super interesting thing, which they brought up a lot on the broadcast, which is all the head coaches in that area all live in Annapolis. Toomey lives in Annapolis. Warren lives in Annapolis. Tills lives in Annapolis. All their assistants live in Annapolis. Very, very interesting. So I think the Annapolis community itself deserves a little bit more credit, as they are one of the powerhouse communities in the country.
Yeah, I think to the crowd size thing, I think if you give it enough time, there will be 30,000 people who were there. Like there's a story that's like a running joke in Buffalo where like there was a Bills-Oilers playoff game forever ago where I think it was the Bills who were down like 35-3 at halftime. I might have the teams backwards. It might have been the Oilers who were down. But like they came back and won from 35-3 down at halftime. And this is like now, like 40 years ago. But if you ask around, you could probably find 500,000 people who'd be like, oh, I was there. I saw it.
Yeah.
Like, Hempstead, I'm sure had whatever it had, I think like 9,000 people. 10 years from now, there will have been 50,000 people at that game because everyone's going to be like, oh, yeah, I was there. I was there for that. Because it's one of those games where people are going to say, yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, and then on the note of the attendance stuff, I believe this year they're going men's and women's at the same location, right? Women's are playing at Gillette. That's a tremendous idea. I think they should have been doing this forever. If you are a parent with young sons and daughters that both are coming up in this game, which a lot of folks are, what a tremendous opportunity to bring the whole family and to celebrate. The women's game is in an awesome place. Some great storylines there. I think we both wish we could probably cover that a little bit more closely. There's just too much to get to on our end, but I think that's great for the sport. The lacrosse community is going to converge. Yeah. The field lacrosse community is going to converge in Boston this weekend, and I think it's I think that's overdue and frankly good for the sport.
Yeah, the Sunday lineup for a lacrosse fan, like you go noon. I believe it's a noon start for the women's D1 title game. The men's D2 title game comes on at 4, and then the men's D3 title game is under the lights. 7:00 start at Gillette for the D3 crown. Like Sunday might be the best day of the weekend. Like those 3 games in a row is going to be incredible.
Yeah, and holy hell, is it a bad day to be a Miller Lite? The D3 game is going at 7. Are you kidding me?
The D3 at 7 after the Adelphi and Tampa folks are done. Like,
if you think the D3 people are going to get there at 4 or like a responsible time, you're a crazy person. The D3 people
Dickinson's living like they got nothing to lose. It's going to be wild in there.
The Dickinson fan base will be there before noon, guaranteed. And yeah, it's gonna be really cool if Boston College makes the women's championship again, with the neon shirts and everything, playing at Foxborough. Yes. There you have some huge potential. You have an undefeated bid going on for UNC. So, I think it's great. And then, by the way, you have NLL Game 3. You have PLL going to camp. So it's a lot going on, and it's like one of the best. It's also the start of summer. It's like the best weekend of the year. We do Victoria Day up here in Canada. We just had our holiday weekend. I'm somewhat jealous of Memorial Day. It's one time in my life I got to get to Secrets before it's all said and done.
I got to find the bar and Patriot Place that's going to put on Game 3 on Saturday night too. I don't know where it is, but that bar exists somewhere, and I'm going to find it.
Yeah, for sure. So okay, let's just go chronologically. Cornell, Richmond, final score 13-12. Richmond led by, I think, 10-7 was kind of the biggest margin.
Yeah.
And my big takeaway, Dan, is the quality of the individual talent for Richmond was really, really impressive. And that's not to take away from Coach Tremonti, but this wasn't like a Colgate team that was relying on like 10-man ride and stuff like that. Richmond played straight up, and they took Cornell right down to the wire.
Yeah, I thought the way you said it earlier, I think is the right way to say it. This isn't like a Cornell survived or Cornell escaped from this game. Like no, Richmond gave them everything they were looking for, and they did not play scared. And they were just like, we're going to play with our guys, and we'll see who comes out on top. I thought Max Merklinger was awesome. Yep. In the first quarter. He was dodging, getting the spots, and just shooting through guys, and it was like you could see the confidence in Richmond in those moments. early going, it felt to me, and I kind of said this on social, I was like, I feel like I'm watching a contest between a volume shooter and an efficiency, an efficient offense. Because there was a point where the score was 2-2, but I think Cornell was out shooting Richmond like 13-3. But Richmond just like canning shots and making them count and getting better looks. I think there's a couple of things that should be mentioned that probably won't make it. Like if you go back and look at this box score, you won't see that Hunter Smith was clearly banged up. Coach Chamati after the game was like, no, we were just rotating guys and making sure everybody got in there. But man, he got hurt. He hurt his shoulder, it looked like, guarding CJ out of Dodge one time. And then he was getting his hip done with the roller. He was getting stretched out, getting his calf. Like he was banged up, and he was still gutting it out there. And then there's the sequence where I think Richmond played like 2.5 minutes straight of defense without Hunter Smith on the field, where Cornell like would shoot, get a reset, shoot, got a reset. Cornell even subbed their whole midfield at one point and still played offense. Vigou made a bunch of saves in that possession, and I think that either kept the game tied or kept it within one. And I remember watching that and being like, if Richmond pulls this out, that stretch of game is going to be why. Like when their defense held Cornell goalless for like 2 minutes and change without their best defender on the field. So emotionally, I was like, man, Richmond, I kind of want them to do this. Like, this is unbelievable what we're watching here. And I know after the game, like seeing in the press, seeing the kids like Vigou and Merklinger were the two who were meeting the media and everything, and they were like clearly really emotional. And I think, for kids like that, where if you're a senior at this team at Richmond, when you commit to Richmond, whatever it is, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, you're probably going there having, you've like been sold on, or you're buying in on the idea of you're building something here. You're not, it's not like going to Q's where you get sold on, we're going to the Final Four if you come here. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's not just something that you can promise a kid at Richmond. So the guys on that roster, especially that senior class, they get there building to this moment. And I imagine it is very difficult for them after that game to be like, we did build something. Like, we took this program to a place it has never been. And this moment still sucks. Like, because we went toe to toe with the best, and we were there in a winnable game. And in the end, it just went Cornell's way.
Yeah, and I think if you're a Richmond fan, you're probably thinking, we get by that one, like we're right in it, right? Like we get by Cornell, they would have felt like they had a good chance against Penn State, and then obviously, we'll not sure what would happen after that, but yeah, no, they're outstanding. I'm not reporting anything here, but Richmond's biggest challenge from now until forever is going to be keeping Chamati there. Because if you don't think he's the first name on every big job, you're naive as to how college sports work. But it seems like he's got a great thing going there. They love him. He seems like he loves coaching there. And again, I'm not reporting anything. I'm just saying, like, logically that would seem to be the next step. The quality of the shooting, I thought, really impressive for Richmond. They did that to UNC. They did it to Cornell. Didn't get a ton of looks because of the possession differential, but they made them count. Creo hoses it, only shoots to the top corners. Olsen hoses it. Merklinger hoses it. If when they look back on this game in 20 years, sometimes we say the box scores, do or don't tell the story. The box score tells the story in this one. The face-offs, the ground balls, the failed clears killed Richmond. And when you're playing against the best team or one of the best teams, you can't make mistakes. Richmond made very few. Cornell punished, felt like every single one. Their failed clears, they just resulted in goals. Cascadden was dominant. And I just kept texting. It's funny. I pulled up my phone while you were chatting. Not trying to be rude, but just looking back through. I didn't take a ton of notes on this game because I was watching as a fan and drinking, but I was texting my brother, who's also a Cornell alum. So. And I just kept. Well, first of all, I kept saying body shots. I meant like body blows, like a boxer, but I realized body shots is like tequila out of the belly button. So I switched to body blows at some point, and that's really what it felt like. Even those long possessions, that 2.5-minute stand by Richmond, all the early saves from Vigu, those all were just kind of like body blows over the course of the game and just wore him down. And then in the fourth quarter, Cornell was able to make some plays. It's been, I think, widely circulated, but CJ having 3 college turnovers and 10 loose balls in a game when Smith was otherwise really, really good on him, it's just sick. Like I don't know. We're running out of words to say. He's been the best guy every time out this year.
Yeah, I think he got asked about that after the game, and he was like, "Look, sometimes you have days where you're not scoring a ton, or like it's hard to find opportunities to score a ton." And he's like, we were always coached to be like, whether it's like Busick or whoever else who's ever coached, he's like, you're coached to just find other little ways that you can impact the game. Sometimes it's ground balls, sometimes it's whatever. So he had 10 ground balls and 3 caused turnovers. Cornell's SID folks, the people at the game, pointed out, and are you ready for this? This is going to blow your mind. The 3 caused turnovers that CJ Kirst had tie him for 3rd all time at Cornell history with Gavin Adler. He and Gavin Adler have the same number of caused turnovers. The next one he has will pass Gavin Adler for the 3rd most all time in Cornell history.
Oh, it's crazy, man. It's and then Goldstein had a bunch too. Like
I was gonna say, to me, if you want to pick the best player on the field between both teams in the game, it was Ryan Goldstein. I thought Goldstein was a show. Like those ride back, he had 2 or 3 ride back, I think, that turned into goals. One of them was an empty netter that he missed, where it was like, just like freak thing. But he was everywhere in that game. He was a monster. I thought he was the best player in the game by far.
He is so mentally fearless and so unshaken by mistakes. It's crazy. He made a couple like, whoa, okay, what was that? And then he just comes back and gets the next one. I think he had 2 lefty BTB either passes or shots, and you just kind of can live with that. He kind of is a little bit like the Kavanaghs in that sense. It's like you kind of just have to let him like play. He plays so hard, and the results are overwhelmingly positive. So you just kind of live with the 1 or 2 that you probably want back. He missed the 2 empty netters, scored a bunch of other tough ones, and it's the formula has still been the same for Cornell, where you have to have 2 guys who are elite cover guys. You have like Dunham, I thought was very, very good, even though Goldstein had the big day. Smith was obviously impressive. And then if you're Penn State, that is kind of their formula too. Parham and Ross are really good. So we'll get to that in the previews of the next game. Last thing was big was the transition game for Cornell. They got at least 3 goals from defensive personnel, 2 pull goals. And then Lamb had the early one. Again, there's 2 ways to look at it. It's like, our offense couldn't get going. We needed this other part of the offense. Well, you got it. Like, that's the important part. At this time of year, it's not about who gets them. It's that Cornell scored 13, and that was enough to win it. Those were big. Staubs from deep was big. And the ground ball play, especially in the fourth quarter, I think it was perfect face-offs for Cornell in the fourth quarter. That's been a Cornell calling card for years, the ground ball play, and in the biggest moments, I thought that was pretty much what turned the game.
One of the sickest plays of the game, you didn't get a lot of, I don't know if I didn't hear the broadcast. I kind of heard it. If you've been in a press box near Kark, then you still get to kind of hear the broadcast. It doesn't matter that he's like a room away with like a thick panel of glass. Like you can always hear Kark. But Michael Long threw a skip feed that was like an X-ray vision feed. One of the coolest ones I've seen all year. There was a Cornell player, I can't remember who was inside on the crease, but was covered. And it was like, he starts throwing the pass like he's throwing it inside. And I'm like, who are you throwing this to? And he's like, no. He sees through those guys, and he sees down to the low pipe. And I think that was late. I'm going to say he threw it to...
I think it was to Dalton, right?
I think it was to Dalton late, or it might have been... That might have been one to even to Goldstein. But like he hummed that... Oh, no, it was Dalton. It was Dalton in the fourth quarter. He hummed this pass that went through... It's like he literally is like Neo seeing the Matrix, just like went through all this stuff and put it right on Dalton's ear on the low post. I thought it was like the camera view behind him, and from where I was sitting was behind him, so I could see from like the same angle he saw, and it was unbelievable.
Yeah, no, it's they're fun to watch, and Long is getting the third defender every time. He also gets a lot of short stick matchups. It's something he's always been good at. and made some big plays there. Dalton and Firth really, really strong, especially in that fourth quarter. Willem Firth made some big plays. That cross crease pass was nice. I think the power play goal was nice. The no goal for the goalmouth is just so fucking stupid. It was the right call, I think. As a Cornell fan, I thought his knee touched and then his hand touched on the other side. I couldn't see if the body, it gets kind of existential at that point. It seemed like it was the right call. It's just a bad rule. Like, we're seeing some of these goals get taken off the thing. It's stupid, but we kind of covered that. I think so. Yeah, I don't have too much else. I think that was. I'm just looking at my text to my brother. I wrote "make it permanent" in caps locks, and that's pretty much how I felt at the end of the game. So a good W for Cornell, back to the Final Four for the first time since 2022.
I think the only other thing I would throw in is, if you're a Richmond fan, and I feel like a lot of us emotionally are Richmond fans kind of after that year, you don't graduate a ton. Like, Merklinger is a senior, Viggy being a senior hurts, but like Hunter Smith is an underclassman. Aiden O'Neill's back. Joe Sheridan was a man possessed at the end of that game, scoring some unbelievable goals. He is back. Little John had 40 goals this year, and as a sophomore. Like, that team is in a position where they can have long-term success. The question is going to be what you do in net. Obviously, Viggy's an All-American and is graduated, but like, man, oh man, do they have a lot of really young players that were big-time guys for them this year. So after the game, Chamati was like, this senior class changed. I think I said it on social. He was like, they changed the way this program thinks, because this team now thinks every time they walk on the field, we can win the game. And that's like, it's a program changing way of thinking that he thinks this class like imparted. So a lot of these guys that are back next year are underclassmen. Creo, sophomore, really, really good team there in Richmond next year.
Yep. Mitch Dunham going to go down as one of the best portal pickups of the year. Proof that,
sure.
Tucking in with the portal, like adding a piece here or there is super important. And then B, that not all these portal guys have to be huge names from huge schools. Dunham was underrated at the Mount, and boy, had a hell of a year for the Spiders. He's, if the Archers want to put a Hasek, Wires, and Jeffrey, if they need a sub, he's the closest guy maybe on the planet to those three big, tough lefty Canadian defenders. So
Richmond drops that opener to Maryland 12-7, right? They don't lose a game by more than one goal the rest of the year.
Yeah,
they're one goal. They're every loss on their record other than that is a 1-goal loss.
Yeah.
Cornell. Are there 3 other losses?
Yeah. I think Richmond might look back, by the way. The last thing I'll say, on that first possession out of half when they just threw it away to Gilmartin. That one was a killer. That feels like the one that maybe they had a chance to really put the foot on the gas there. They made a few of those in the second half, and Cornell makes very few of those. That's one thing that's helped the Big Red all year. Cascadin obviously helps too. Okay, let's go to Princeton Cuse. We'll keep going in order here. 1918 instant classic. My takeaway: I can't believe Princeton won the faceoffs to the extent that they did, and still lost in general, and gave up that many goals. That was my big takeaway. I thought, if Princeton won faceoffs, they were going to be absolutely in business. That was one of the most shocking things of the entire weekend to me.
I thought the same thing. I did not think Princeton was going to win on faceoffs. I thought surely if they did, it would be something that got them to victory. I did not think they would go 0 on the extra man. They went 0 for 2 on the extra man. I kind of thought there was a good chance we would get a shootout. I thought that was like in the cards. Both these offenses are ridiculous. Both of them have some questions kind of on defense, where you see like sometimes great individual efforts, but some kind of like team defense breakdowns. And they both run super deep. So like the anatomy was there for an up and down game like the one we got. It's tied for the highest scoring quarterfinal game we've ever had, 37 goals. We had 20 goals at halftime. So I thought it was a ton of fun just to watch. Like there were stretches where I was like, I'm just watching the game. Like I'm not going to take a note. I'm just going to watch the game.
Yeah.
But Peter Bonanno for Princeton was electric to start the game. As a freshman in that spot, I thought, tremendous. But I think you kind of almost have to start with the fact that Joey Spallina was like playing out of his mind, that he went for whatever he went for. I think he went for 4-4. Let me look.
And then subtweeted
shots,
and then subtweeted us in the preseason.
Subtweeted everybody. He went four goals, 4 assists on 10 shots with no turnovers, and he went right at Molshine early.
Yep.
Won the matchup with Molshine enough that Princeton just switched it. They went to a different player. Like if you dodge well enough to get the matchup switched when Molshine's on you, then you're doing pretty well.
Yep.
In defense of our take, and the reason we got subtweeted, and everybody else who did too, we wouldn't have that take if you'd done that all year. Yeah. Nobody would.
Yeah.
If you did this all the time, nobody would say these things. So I think it was perfectly defensible when we said it, and now, hey, change the tune. So that's just like how this media thing works. But I wouldn't have said you don't win on the dodge if you won on the dodge all year. But that is that just kind of is what it is. I thought that was his best game as a Syracuse player.
Yeah.
It's the big game, it's the big opponent, it's the tough matchup, and it's about as flawless as he could have played it. So I thought obviously him, carrying a Q's team to the Final Four, not carrying because he wasn't like everybody else was bad, but like, being the leader of the offense, taking this team to a Final Four, is like, there's a nostalgic bit of this to me. Like, I grew up, watching Syracuse Princeton in the 90s and these unbelievable matchups, unbelievable names and everything, where just like absurd goals and plays, and you got instant classics every time they matched up. So there was a nice kind of like nostalgia to this, and to have somebody out there in the 22 for Q's, like looking unstoppable, and Princeton doing it with the attack that they had, like a lot of fun callbacks to classic matchups between these two teams in this game. So just like a ton of fun for that reason, to say nothing of how absurdly, incredibly fun it was to go back and forth and watch them just battle down the stretch.
Yeah, no, totally agree. I also didn't really take a lot of notes. Like, there was nothing really to say in the second half. Like, they just kept scoring. Everyone kept scoring, and I think each team had 9 different goal scorers. I'm pretty sure we had 18 goal scorers. To think that Palumbo had 6 and they had 8 different guys score is crazy. And by the way, sorry, I'm just looking back through some of my notes. Palumbo was unreal, and Princeton is a team that brings a lot back as well. That's probably a first team preseason top 2, top 3 team next year. Maxi's gone, but I think Burns is there, Kabiri's there, Bonanno's a freshman, Palumbo I believe is back, Wade is back. They're one of the best recruiters in the country, so a lot of talent coming. I think one of the best parts about the Spallina thing, with how aggressive he was being, was it just like infused that aggression in the whole team. And watch back some of the highlights this morning. The first goal, Leo comes right out of the box and just goes full speed right down Main Street and stuffs it. That's like sick. Like that's exactly what Cuse needed. And last year they were kind of tentative against Denver, right? In the quarterfinal game, I think a lot of people it was kind of an unsatisfying loss. And this one they just went right at them, and they're going to need to do the same thing against Maryland. Like, you cannot hesitate against the Terps. They're going to destroy you. They need to go right at them. Cuse has some interesting questions. We'll talk about this later, about like the extent that Spallina does want to try Schaller, who's even a step up probably from what he saw last week. And I think go at him. Like, go at him to show the team that you're not afraid, and all that stuff. If you're Syracuse, I think my biggest takeaway for Syracuse is you had that Harvard game where you basically did everything you could to throw the game away in the first 45 minutes. You managed to survive that. You have a game where you get crushed on faceoffs and you are fairly well below 50% in the cage on the road. You survive that. Like, this team has to feel like you should have gone for the head. Like, they've survived some stuff that most teams can't get by, and if they could get a game, if they can get a combo game from McCool and Mullen, they're pretty much. I think they're probably going to have a chance against Maryland. But like, that's not crazy. Those guys have been great all year. Like, they just they have Team of Destiny vibes, maybe more than any of the other teams left in the field.
Yeah, I think the McCool and Mullen thing, both of them had their important plays in this game, despite not having their best like overall statistical days. Johnny Mullen winning a face-off with 1 second on the clock before the half, when McCool had just drawn a 2-minute full-time foul, so that Q's got to have the ball to start the second half and just eat a ton of that penalty, is a massive play. Even after the game, Gary Gate was just like, yeah, we know what happens or what can happen during a non-releasable penalty. You guys saw us last week. Like, you know how big that is, that we didn't have to do that whole thing. And then McCool, I would say it was similar to the Harvard day, where it's like, if you look at his team, his numbers for the day against Harvard, like I think sub 50 there too, but he made 2 big doorstep stops against Harvard. He comes up with 2 giant saves late in the fourth quarter to keep Princeton from tying it, including on like the last possession of the game. So he's making kind of these timely have-to-have-it saves for them. He's got the ice water in the veins for them. But then, yeah, I would also say, like, Palumbo, this game got to 16-11. I was like, somebody might have finally found it. He might have the gear here. And then Palumbo completely leaves planet Earth and like becomes, I don't even know what, like a shooting god, because he just can't miss. I don't think he took a shot that didn't go in. I have to go. Let me go look at this again. There was at the point where when he scored his 6 goals. At that moment, he had 6 goals on 6 shots.
Yeah, he's impressive.
Yeah, he finished with 6 goals on 6 shots.
I mean, back to the subject of like winning, like a win for the sport. The shovel pass to shovel shot from Cuse was nasty. Like, people don't realize the high level skill. And then Palumbo goes BTB to Bonanno, who goes around the world. You're just like, what is happening right now? Like did Gary Gate steal the Princeton guy's jersey and go back out there? Like, what the fuck is going on right now? And the skill level is insane. Bonanno, best game of his career. Yeah, it's like hard to talk about this game. It's like these guys are doing
things out there now that I didn't think you see them and you're just like, you can do that. Like, that's like, I was at Prep Nationals, one of these high school events, and I'm watching this kid who's a pole at Salisbury who's going to Maryland. Right, he has a long stick and he is running up the field with the ball in his stick on a clear, and to split dodge around somebody, he puts the stick behind his back and goes. I was like, with a long pole. Like, and it goes vertical, and he just keeps the ball and keeps running. And I was like, kids these days, man, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how they do this stuff anymore. But like, the level of skill, in that game, and the level of stick work and stick skill that was on display was like just laser guided, precise at all times.
Yep, no doubt. Anything else on that one?
The 2 teams combined to turn it over 20 times. Princeton had 11, Q's had 9. Crazy. Like, the ball's humming and flying around out there, but it's never out of control.
Yeah, that's crazy, and that's going to have to be the formula for Q's, by the way, against Maryland. Another thing I liked, they've really parlayed this Peyton Anderson second line thing well. He's really given them some juice. I think they say that on the broadcast they call him like the Bear or something. Good nickname. That's he's a load, and the like attackman transitioning to second line midi thing, it doesn't always work. Some guys can't really get the feel for it. He had 2 goals in this game. He's been really a nice late season revelation, especially because McCarthy and Hoddle, the guys he plays with, are very good players, but they're obviously like small, quicker guys. So to have just a punisher helps. And then they're just deep. 4 for Spallina, 3 for Hiltz, 2 for Thompson, 2 for English, 3 for Leo, 2 for Anderson, 1 for Deere, 1 for McCarthy, 1 for Mullen. That's
Anderson played a good amount of midfield at Brunswick. He got stuck. I mean, it's the same thing that happens to you when you go to Syracuse. Like, the attack's so good, sorry, you just have to play midfield. So like, it's kind of what's happening to him at Syracuse too. But like, I would have considered him a more natural midfielder. I always loved his game at its best when like things are off script, when like the ball's on the ground and it gets like pick it up off the ground and move it one ahead and then like let's just try and make something happen. He's dynamite in those things, but yes, he is a load to cover, and he'll take a shorty to a place like in an invert or a low wing and just be a bear.
Yeah, it's funny. When I was at Maryland, our backup LSM was Owen Pavelski, who was a previous all-conference defender, lockdown defender at Villanova. He's also one of my best friends. I remember just thinking, like, that's the last guy you want to see as like a second LSM, is like someone that's just going to come out and cross-check you and just be like a bull. And it's kind of the inverse of that with Anderson. Like okay, second line's out there, we got a break. You know, most second lines you get like some invert guys or some kind of shiftier guys or whatever. So, okay, second lines, we finally get a break. Here's like a 6'3" bear just running at my face. Like this sucks. So yeah, he was very good. So okay, we'll move on to Penn State, Notre Dame. One of the most, it wasn't an upset. Penn State seeded. One of the most, when it got to 12-6, one of the more improbable outcomes that you could have thought. I have said on this show for weeks, you cannot let the Kavanagh score a ride back, juice goal, you foul them. Penn State did the worst thing you could do. They turned it over. They let Kavanagh score, and then they fouled him. Then they like pushed his head into the dirt. The absolute worst thing you can do against Notre Dame, period. Period. And you're thinking, this game's over. We've seen this movie before. They're doing the Kavanagh legacy discussion on the broadcast. And then the TSN turning point was a series of 3 plays. Alex Ross knocked down a pass in on the man up. It was 12-6. He knocks down a pass. They end up failing that clear. It comes back down. Jack Frack makes a save in the zone. They score. Next possession, Penn State plays one of their first possessions in zone. Ross knocks that down as well. They score again. Now it's 12-8, and the building's into it, and then Penn State pretty much dominates from there. But I could not believe when it got to 12-6 and they had that ride back into the foul. I cannot believe that Penn State came back from that.
Yeah, the 12-6 and with the foul, I was thinking of you when it happened too. I was like, here's the Kavanagh moment where he's gonna. This is Mark Ruffalo saying, "I'm always angry," and then turning into the Hulk, like right here, and just like starting to just smash things. I was ready for that to happen, but I mean, like Matt Traynor played out of his mind.
Yep.
Just decided to just start making goals happen by himself, basically. I think there's some wondering to why Sean Light wasn't on him more. I think that's probably a popular question after the game. I know, he had some success with the matchup, but like, to me, it's like those two just need to be attached at the hip for the duration. I can't imagine ever wanting to switch the matchup with them. So I was surprised that it went that way, but like Trainor's performance in the second half of this game was I refuse to lose kind of game. Like
it was a legacy performance. There's like no other way to put that. He's a Penn State legend. He was already, a conference player of the year, yada yada. But that was just sick. And also like that's not really his game. That's the impressive part. Is he's been mostly a secondary dodger, off ball type guy with legit juice. And this game he was just like, oh, actually I'm like Paul Rabel. I'm just gonna dodge from the midline and take my guy.
Yeah.
The problem.
He scored.
The problem for Notre Dame, I think, but just to go off what you were talking about with the matchups, I agree. It seems pretty obvious in hindsight that they should have switched it. 2 things. One, Schwitzenberg is awesome. Schwitzenberg's been sick the whole year, so it's not that crazy. But the problem is Lehman was good at getting away from Light as well. So that's the kind of the thought. It's like, okay, maybe Traynor will win, but we'll just completely eliminate Lehman. Well, Lehman had like 3 goals, mostly on getting himself switched on to short sticks. And so that's kind of the problem, is they did feel like they wasted Light a little bit because he didn't take away Traynor because he wasn't on him, and Lehman was able to be super efficient whenever he could get away from Light. So it maybe feels like he wasted him just a little bit there.
Yeah, I get it, and it's all like Monday morning quarterbacking kind of stuff. Sure. Like obviously in the moment, dealing with the way Trainer and Layman too were playing is like, I thought Ethan Long had a great game too. It became difficult to try and decide on the best way to deploy your polls in that situation. But I mean, just it's 12-6 and Penn State scores 8 straight. Like we gotta jar ourselves out of this somehow. I thought the zone looks from Penn State were good too. I thought like mixing it up and trying to hit the Notre Dame with a couple of different things is a good thing to do. I've said to you before, I'm always supportive of kind of like jumping back and forth or showing both things, especially in situations where you feel like we might not be deep enough with our personnel on defense to feel good about a lot of our matchups. Probably feel great about Ross and Parnham. And then with the guys Notre Dame has out there after that, maybe we don't feel as good. So let's like throw some zone, throw some man, change up where we're sliding from, like shut adjacents once in a while and just try and keep them off balance that way. So it becomes less like Notre Dame can't just go, hey, all right, you've got a good matchup, dodge your guy, go draw a slide, and we're cooking. By varying it, you kind of deny their ability to do that. And like, I think that's a good scheme move for Penn State.
Yeah, obviously going to be pretty much the most interesting storyline going into the Cornell game is what they choose to do defensively after a Richmond team. Like I was did a hit for radio this week for ESPN Ithaca. Like there was like nothing schematic about the Cornell Richmond game. Like both teams could have pretty much written what the other team was going to do. That was just basically a bloodbath for 2 hours. This one is going to be like a lot more nip and tuck. The interesting thing about the Penn State zone is it's a weird zone. I think people should recognize that going into the Cornell game, especially when the ball's behind the net. They are like super, super active. Zones, the idea of zone is you want to hold space, pass matchups. Penn State's zone will like wheel the whole thing with you. It's a very, very effective zone that has a ton of man-on-man principles. So I think Cornell's got to realize like you can't just be, oh, it's zone, we're gonna play like it's zone. It's kind of a hybrid. It's very interesting defense, to be honest with you, especially when the ball is behind the net, and that's why it gave Notre Dame a bunch of troubles. We spent all this time talking about the Notre Dame defense and maybe some decisions they could have made differently. They shot 0 for 10 in the fourth quarter. They had at least 2 wide open looks late in the game. And yeah, it was just, it kind of shows you like to win championships back to back, you have to be dominant. You also have to get all these breaks. And finally, in a big game, the breaks didn't go the way for the Irish.
Yeah. And I thought Victordelli started the game really well for the Irish in that too, but and again, I'm not trying to pile on here because Jack Frack didn't have it either, but neither goalie made a fourth quarter save in this game.
Yeah. They shot 0 for 10. Notre Dame shot 0 for 10 like on the net. They missed 10 shots, and most of them are pretty good looks.
Yeah. So if your shooting goes to shit quite like that, then you're in trouble, obviously. The clearing I thought was like, it felt shaky early. I don't know if that was like nerves in the game or just kind of like settling into the environment. As we said, like big crowd, pretty nuts there, maybe a little jittery to start because both teams didn't clear very well early, but kind of got better as the game went on. But man, like the way Notre Dame usually finds a gear late, and it's been a story for them all year that they have these droughts where they can't score. And sometimes those droughts don't look like this, though. As you said, they went 0 for 10 late. Like that's not a scoring drought. That's I mean, like it is, but it's like it's a shooting drought. Like I look at some of their droughts from early in the year, and it's like they aren't even finding good shots.
It wasn't an offensive drought. Yeah.
The offense was still like producing what it needed to. They just couldn't shoot. They couldn't hit water if they fell out of a boat late. But I think it was tough to see Notre Dame go down that way because, as you said, like not an upset, but I don't know how many people were giving Penn State a legitimate chance to win that game, given the way Notre Dame played a week ago, their form, kind of ending the season and everything, and back-to-back champs and all that. I felt like the heavy favorite, not heavy favorite, but like the team that everybody was picking in this was going to be Notre Dame. So to see them kind of, at 12-6, that's a step on the throat moment, and they got a reason to deliver it, and they didn't, and that is not typical Notre Dame.
Yeah. basically as simple as that. Essentially, it's this is how it went. How every Notre and this is why you played the freaking games, right? Like this went went the way that every Notre Dame game has gone for the last 2 years. Penn State is aware of that. Their players know that they're the back-to-back champions, and they had a decision to make about we can fold our tents and go home and say, oh, we ran into a good Notre Dame team, and they came back, and that's why we love doing this. That's why you play the freaking games. It's as simple as that. Like we talk on the show mostly about stats, about schemes, about big picture stuff. This was a warrior mentality for Penn State. This was a test and a demonstration of the collective character of that team. And like fucking rights, man. Sports are the best. Like what else are you gonna say? I was inspired, watching the game. I was like texting my friend. Like I was thinking, like I want to go to PLL camp right now. Like, I want to go play. This is an inspiring game to go play. Let's do like 5 minutes just on looking back. Like, what are you going to remember kind of this Notre Dame era? Because they'll reload. They're great recruiters. But this is the end of this championship Kavanagh era.
I was going to say, it's the end of the Kavanagh era, really. I know, Matt had his own time there. But this era of going from Pat to Chris with their overlap and kind of like the electric way that they play, the fact that they also, lacrosse at the college level, at the pro level too, but can still be pretty stiff. There's a lot of coach speak that happens when you try and get honest answers from people. The Kavanaghs don't give it to you. They tell you how they feel and they deliver good sound. And as a media person, it's like, man, I love having those guys around because it's going to be fun. But I think this era of Notre Dame, and again, it's always going to be there, but like the defense in this era of Notre Dame, the polls that they put out on the field every year, and their midfield groups every year were always just like, how do they always get so good on that end of the field? Yeah. Going from, with whether it's Cohen and then they get, Fake comes there with Tevlin and Chris Conlon and, Napolitano, and now they have Donovan and Sean Light is obviously still going to be there. But the brand of lacrosse where sometimes when you play a team that's very, very much like a heavyweight or the number one team, whatever, you can try and be physical or you can try and take them out of the game or something like that. Like the Kavanaghs and other guys on that team, they want you to do that. Like they want to fight. They want contact. They want to fight you to get to a spot on the field. They want to make it personal. That brand of lacrosse is fun. And like you said, it's part of Notre Dame's DNA, I think, but without Kavanaghs there, I feel like I worry a little bit that it might not be quite the same on the offensive end.
Yeah, how can it be? And also, they've run some pretty unusual systems there because they've had these like last year. I used to say when they were on that dominant run, they played traditional offense for the first 30 seconds, and then they played Kavanagh fun time for the last 30. Because I was like, okay, we'll see what we can get from our middies, and then we'll just let Pat and Chris be the two best players in the country, which is what they were and what they have been. The greatest postseason competitors, I think, of their era. Certainly, I think, will be remembered for alleviating the pressure on subsequent Notre Dame teams to not be the team that finally got it done. They did it. They got it done. I think the 2017 Terps had a big effect on that for subsequent Maryland teams. And Notre Dame is too big of a brand. They built this program. They're going to be very good. Corrigan's a great coach. He's been to the Final Four a million times. So yeah, the end of an era. We expect them to reload, but what a joy it was. Two championships, another quarterfinal effort. Kind of felt like that UVA team last year, right? Let's see if the old dogs can carry us one more time. Ended up coming up a little short against a team that was probably a little bit more hungry in the end, and that's again how college sports typically go.
That's how it goes. Yeah, the portal already humming. No breaking news there, but the portal already humming for Notre Dame. They are reloading. They'll be back.
And by the way, one of the side notes of this era has been that Notre Dame has been amongst basically, I think, tied with Maryland for the best portal teams. They got a obviously McLean in the portal, Tevlin in the portal, Fake in the portal. Conlon, I think, was a portal guy. He was a
portal guy from Holy Cross. Yeah.
Yeah, they've really dominated in that space. When you look back at some other of the big programs that haven't been able to kind of contribute in that same way, or to be frank, like Duke brings in too many guys, and then they have all.
I was going to say,
there's a balance. There's a balance to it, and they seem to strike that balance really well.
Yeah, they don't volume shoot the portal. They don't go and just be like, all these guys are really good. Let's just get as many as we can. They just go find let's try and find 2 or 3 guys where we have an opening and fit what we're about and really want to be here kind of guys.
Yeah, no doubt. So, okay, let's move on to the last game of the weekend. I'm frankly not sure how much there is to say about the Maryland-Georgetown game. Maryland keeps doing what they do every week. What else is there to say?
Yeah, I think coming in, I was like, I liked the feel of Georgetown coming in because they had all this momentum and they'd been playing much better offense and all that. But a concern I had around Georgetown really all year, starting from early in the year, with their Hopkins game, and then ultimately when they played Denver, some other games, is they could have some really bad shooting days sometimes. And they put one shot on Cage in the first quarter of this game, and from that point, I was like, we might be getting one of these bad Georgetown shooting days here. Some of that because they can have them. Some of that because Maryland's defense is really good. I don't want to take anything away from what Schaller did in his matchup and how well McNaney played. But Georgetown only put 17 shots on net in the game, and it's just not gonna, with McNaney in net and the defense you're up against, it's not gonna get it done. So I think again some credit in there to Maryland's defense for playing as well as they did. But Georgetown had a very bad shooting day. They turned the ball over a ton. I think it was more early than late, but they turned the ball over a ton.
Yeah, and 7 turnovers in the first quarter.
Yeah, if you're trying to upset Maryland of all teams, beating yourself, Maryland just says thank you. They'll just take your mistakes and say thank you.
The quality of the defense for Maryland is just next level. It's just the quality of the on-ball play mixed with the lack of mistakes, mixed with the goaltender, is just been hard to overcome. Anderson Moore was sharp for Georgetown. That's pretty much a necessity. I think we had 70 combined shots in this one. I think we had 90 in the Princeton Syracuse game, and Maryland put 13 on in the fourth quarter, which didn't necessarily feel like that. Georgetown just 17 shots on goal the whole game, like you mentioned. Everything else pretty similar. The turnovers jump out, the shots jump out, and then interestingly, Maryland does not fail clears really, and they also don't ride. They talked about it on the broadcast. So they basically, Till said he doesn't have the attack to ride. By the way, that's a perfect demonstration of what makes Till's great, in my opinion. He said, "Oh, we don't have good at riding attackment. Okay, cool. Let's just punt on the ride and we'll just do something else." And I think that's a bit of a gift for Syracuse, who can't clear the ball. And that is,
yeah.
I think the Orange will be just fine to do that. Going to the Final Four again. I'm not trying to be short here. I'm obviously an alum of Maryland. They did what they do.
Yeah, I think there was a stretch in this game where I was like, maybe Georgetown's finding it here. Carroll went back to back with 2 quick ones, and then I think a couple minutes later, I think Dudemain scores.
Yep.
And at that point, it's either tied or Georgetown's up 1, and I was like, all right, they're finding it. They're finding their offensive flow. They're getting into it. It took them a while to kind of shake it, but here we go. And then I think from that point on, it was Maryland just locked them out of the game. The defense is just too good. And Maryland's doing it a typical Maryland kind of game where who's going to be doing the scoring? Irk's a hat trick. Spanos, not too much from him in this game.
Yep.
Just 2 goals for Daniel Kelly. Bryce Ford's got, gets the goal late, I think, but they're just kind of getting by, or not, they produce with everybody and the numbers move around every week. And so it's hard to, figure out again, if you're scheming to stop this team, I still don't know the name you put at the top of the report. It's probably Spanos, but like, all right, you put Figueres on Spanos, or if that's what you want to do, and you delete Spanos. He has the best game of his life. You're so far from being okay if you manage to do that. Like you're so far away from having them defended.
It's probably Spanos, but it's the two-headed. Like monster feels like the wrong term, but the duo of Keegan and Ford, they're basically the same player. Like other than the jersey number, they're pretty much the same guy. They're so two-handed, and they're such an example of like all that, everything you need and nothing more in today's game. They're two-handed. Yeah. They beat matchups. They don't like destroy matchups, but they get leverage on matchups and they score. They both shoot it well. They both pass it well. And speaking of portal guys, those two have been just unreal this year for the Terps. And yeah, I think a 4-0 or 3-1 fourth quarter for Maryland. I think of that clip of Pete Carroll saying, "Can you win the game in the first quarter? No. Can you win the game in the second? Can you win the game in the fourth quarter? Yes, you can." And they did that. I would love to see the stats on Tills versus previous assistants. It feels like it's getting a little Saban-ish, a little Belichick-ish. Connery's got him a couple times at Michigan. But it's a challenge for sure. So it's just remarkable that Coach Tills can do this every year, and they've been dominant in the quarterfinals and dominant in the semifinals too. So we'll see if that trend.
Yeah, and Jonah Carrier should get a shout because he's a freshman and just went 9 of 12 facing off in the NCAA quarterfinals.
Yeah, and if you listen to Tills talk in the press conference, by the way, if you're a fan, go listen to the press conferences. You get tons of interesting little information out of there.
Really good.
And you really hear Tills talk about the face-offs as something that kind of shifted the game. The last thing I want to say about the defense also is they just don't make the same mistake twice. There's a power play early in the game for Georgetown, and on the first time around they missed the crease guy. He was open, I think. They didn't hit him. Dudemain gets a shot, misses it. They get the ball back. They tried to feed it into the crease, and it's just Burles from behind slaps the stick. I think yard sales the guy going the other way. Like they just learn so quickly and clean up those mistakes so quickly. So fun one to watch there. Okay, let's jump into looking ahead to this weekend. We will go chronologically again, and so we'll start with Penn State Cornell. By the way, I don't have the exact stats in front of me. The team that plays the first semifinal has an overwhelming statistical advantage as it pertains to the final. So that's something to kind of monitor this year. Cornell looking to get revenge on the only team that's beat them this year. That crazy game, we covered it well on the podcast. And Tambroni versus two guys who he recruited at Cornell. Tambroni back in Boston after he coached Cornell there to the national championship game in 2009. There's a lot of juicy storylines here. What sticks out to you?
I think, you mentioned they already played once this year. A couple of callbacks to that need to be mentioned off the top. Matt Traynor and Kyle Lehman did not play in that game from earlier in the year, and Penn State won. And Alex Ross got the CJ Kirst matchup in that game and did decently well. I think CJ had 2-2, which is like, if CJ ends up with that, then you can probably say that's as good as we can really hope for. So I think if you're Penn State, you're saying we beat this team once already without our two best offensive players, without two of our most productive attackmen. And I think you got to start there if you're Penn State. I think Penn State has a couple things going for them, and again, they don't turn the ball over a ton. They take care of the ball pretty well. So they won't. It won't be something where you just kind of give the game away to the Big Red. And then I think the comeback and the juice of being down 12-6 and rattling off 8 straight against Notre Dame coming into this game is the kind of thing you carry emotionally. And I think there's also something to Penn State being able to look at this field and being like Cornell, Maryland, Syracuse, decades old blue blood, decades old blue blood, decades old blue blood, and us. You know what I mean? We are here to take our place with them. Like we're not just happy to be here. Like we beat one of these teams once. Like we can hang with these guys. So I think for Penn State, it starts with acknowledging, number one, you've defended the cursed matchup before already decently well, and you've beaten this team without your best players. You have to couch it with the game was more than 2 months ago, and a lot has happened since then.
Yep.
But I feel like, for Cornell it gets a little more challenging because you don't necessarily get to use a ton of that game tape from earlier in the year because you can't be like, I don't think we can study the offense from this game. It didn't have these guys in it. What are we going to learn from our last time playing them? For Penn State, that's not necessarily the case. You got to see Cornell's best shot. You can't count on a goofy late penalty to bail you out in this one. So don't leave it up to the stripes. But don't, if it's Matty Palin, don't leave it up to replay. But I think Penn State, they've got the horses, man. They've got the horses.
Yeah, it is an interesting point you brought up about blue bloods and all that stuff, because the concept of experience here is kind of interesting, right? Cornell's got this senior class that went all the way to the Monday. Maryland has the most experienced goaltender in the history of college lacrosse, and obviously has a ton of guys who played in that national championship game, but also has Keegan Ford. It's their first taste. They got a lot of guys who haven't played on that stage. Penn State's back. 2 of their classes went to the Final Four in 23, and then Cuse has more Final Fours than anyone in the history of the sport, and has no players that have played in one. I guess except for Sammy English. So just kind of interesting. There's levels to experience, right? You can get it a lot of different places, a lot of different ways. The most interesting thing to me has to be the zone, no zone, because I think you're right. The emotional side is really key for Penn State. They're coming in with all this momentum. Do you want to kind of lie down a little bit in zone to start the game? That's not really how you want to start. But that Notre Dame game absolutely turned around when Penn State went to zone. So, just some interesting decisions there. I would expect them not to come out in zone because they'll want to set the tempo for how to play. And also Cornell is probably a little bit slicker than Notre Dame is and has more lefties, better field balance, etc. So I would expect it to be man, and then the key is going to be the rope. The Cornell midfield is going to be good. Number 2, the D midi for Penn State, I thought had a really sharp game against Notre Dame. He's going to be big. And then the other thing to watch is Penn State initiates all their offense, or the majority of their offense, from the high corners, and they use picks better than almost anyone else in the country. They get a lot of good stuff out of pick and rolls. So Cornell's pick play is really going to be those are, I think, going to decide the game. It's the zone, no zone for Penn State, and then Cornell's ability to navigate picks and the high wings are kind of the 2 things I'm watching.
I would also throw in, I think if you're Penn State, you need Jack Frack's best game of the year. He hasn't been over 50% in any of the last 4 games they've played.
I thought he was all right against. I thought he was good early against Notre Dame. The numbers, watching the game in real time, the numbers felt a little bit worse than how it felt like he played. But I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, the last time he was over 50 was when they played Rutgers, in mid-April. So both times he's played Maryland, he's been right around 30. You know what I mean? This is as good as it gets now. Sometimes when you have these kind of, he has games where his percentage is through the roof against maybe a bad shooting team, and then he struggles sometimes with much better teams. So this is going to be a team that shoots as well as anybody in the country, and there's going to be a lot of shots coming your way, and they're not going to be easy. You know what I mean? There's not going. I feel like you don't see Cornell take a ton of, outside of when CJ does it, time room bullseye, guy who catches the ball with nobody around him and he gets to just kind of crow hop into one and the goalie can stare it down. There will be shots in this where Long just fires it through to somebody and you have to go pipe to pipe and make a save. Or Goldstein feeds from X and it goes you got to go back to front and make a save. Yeah. And there aren't going to be a lot of ones that are easy to pick up. Cornell just doesn't run offense that way. So I think Penn State in the net, Fracchia needs to have his best game of the year.
Yep. I think that basically copy paste what you just said for the faceoffs too. It just seems hard to that's why I said with the Syracuse quarterfinal thing, Mullen and McCool were both great. It's a hard math advantage to overcome. The specialists. You got to win that game, and the same is true, by the way, for Wyatt Nuss. Not his best statistical game against Richmond. He's going to have to be better. You figure for Cornell, but he's played in a lot of big moments too, and he's been really good all year. Just kind of a tough one against Richmond, but Richmond does that to everybody. They made Jan Ficaro look pretty average against UNC. We kind of already covered that, but the goaltending, face-offs, just feels kind of like a blanket key to the game, doesn't it? This weekend, like same with Maryland. Like we know McNaney's going to be good. If he's not good, Maryland's math doesn't make any sense. They're going to get crushed if McNaney's not good because they don't shoot enough and score enough to overcome it. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting there. Parnham and Ross are gonna be fun to watch, man. They are gonna go right at you, and we'll see. The storylines in this one are freaking juicy with the rare time where Penn State is probably like, hell yeah, we get to play Cornell, and Cornell's like, hell yeah, we get to play. We get to kind of right that wrong. I honestly think both of them are probably happy to see the games go like that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. For me, I feel like I would put Parnham on Kirst. I know they put Ross on him last time. I like Parnham better in the matchups where you're doing the bruiser thing, where you're doing the leverage game and you just like low man wins and let's just try and shove each other around. I feel like Parnham would be better suited there than he would be guarding Goldstein. Whereas Ross, I'd feel okay with him on Kirst. I'd feel better having Ross on Goldstein by a decent measure, I think, than having Parnham on Goldstein.
Yeah, it's interesting. And will they switch it up? Maybe.
Yeah.
It seems like a logical thing to do. The thing that sticks out, and you saw him play in person, by the way, to CJ, I think the most underrated part of CJ's game, his conditioning is fucking sick, man. Like he played 60 in that game. And there's a great clip of the press conference of a reporter asking if they felt like Richmond got tired, and CJ just gets this like Joker-ish smile on his face. And I put it in my article. Go read my recent article, Lacrosse Culture Daily. But it's going to be a battle for 60. If this was a blowout either way, I'd be pretty shocked. This kind of feels like it's probably going to look a lot like the Richmond game. And it's going to have a Big Ten feel, right? Cornell is an Ivy League team that'll kind of play like an Ivy League team against Princeton. They'll play 20-15, but I think they'll probably be comfortable grinding too with a Big Ten team. So that'll be interesting. Speaking of rematches, Syracuse and Maryland saw each other this year as well. As we flip over to that game, a game that was 11-7 for Maryland in the first matchup. But if you look at the box score, which I did just before this, like all the stats are super close. It's basically shooting, a few other things. Ground balls are basically even. Face-offs are basically even. Saves were pretty much even. So an 11-7 game that was probably a closer one than that. And two teams playing completely different styles right now with the high-flying Orange and the low-scoring Terrapins. My research, Dan, we've talked to this all year about the scoring offenses. My research suggests that you would rather have the high-flying offense than the lockdown defense. Be a fascinating sample for something I've been talking about all year long.
I would say that first matchup of the year, I thought it was interesting because, number one, it was Syracuse playing Maryland outside of the Dome. And it was notably, Maryland let them know after the game and everything, like it ain't 70 and sunny. They played that game and it was like
I forgot that
cold.
Was the game. Yeah,
it was cold. It was
right.
rainy. It was wet. It was gross.
You think that clip will get played this week in the Syracuse film room?
Well, I remember because I remember talking to some folks at Syracuse about that too, and I don't think Hughes practiced much outdoors prior to that game. So it was like literally, it was like welcome to the elements. Almost for the first time when they played that game. I would also say that game was tight in the first half, and then Syracuse did their Syracuse thing, committed a bunch of bad penalties in the second half of that game. Dwan gets one late. Michael Leo had one. It was, they get like a crappy offside call, and you bury yourself when you do that. That said, they will be outdoors. They will not be in the Dome, but it will probably be 70 and sunny. It might be 70 and sunny.
It might be 100 and sunny.
So I don't know if the weather will quite be on the Terp side the way it was on their side earlier. And I think I don't know what to make of, and this is like as I was getting ready to start talking about this, I can't decide on what my take is as it comes to like how much pressure is on Q's here, because it's like Q's being back. They're in the Final Four. All right, Q's made the Final Four again. It's been a while. Like welcome back, but like the real measure of Q's back is that like this is where you're supposed to be. So like Q's back is like you should be there or in the conversation for there every year, and you should be successful when you're there too. So I feel like Q's might still be kind of wearing that a little bit. But I think like if the Q's team that showed up against Princeton shows up for this game, I feel pretty good about Q's. If Jimmy McCool's out there getting a 2-minute penalty, then like that's going to be tougher sailing against Maryland. Not to take anything away from Princeton, but like, man, if you end up with the box with those kind of fouls, like I don't even look at the numbers. I'm just like a Tillman team will take your mistake and bury you for it every time. It's why they win games so often, because they execute well and they punish you when you don't.
Yeah. By the way, the pop the ball up in the air and then the goalie leaving the cage, it never works. I feel like they just can't help themselves. I remember 2014 World Lacrosse Championships. Schwartzman tried to do that to Crowley and he just threw it in the empty net. And I just feel like they just get fired up. It's like they feel like they don't get credit for the save unless they actually get the ball, so that they want to like lock in that save. I actually am going to disagree with you. I don't think there's any pressure on Cuse at this point. I think you could see like the flood of emotion from Spallina in that interview, as if like we've kind of gotten us back to championship weekend. They're the lower seeded team. They're playing against a team that almost never loses in this Saturday game. I don't see a ton of pressure on Cuse. Maybe I'm outside that bubble and I just don't know what I'm talking about, but it felt like I don't know. It kind of feels like getting to the Final Four is an accomplishment, and then whatever happens from here is just kind of not random per se, but I don't think you can say anyone underachieved when you make the Final Four. I think that's just my take, but yeah. I actually just looked at the weather in Foxborough, cold and rainy actually on Saturday, which is for Cornell and Maryland fans brings back nightmares of the rain delay in Hartford. That almost. Oh,
I remember. I was there too. Oh man, that was brutal.
Yeah, long day. Long day. We went back to the hotel. We went to the game, went back to the hotel, went back to the game.
I remember being in the press box and seeing the buses leaving. Golick Jr. was playing poker with other media people for like sugar packets in like the media snack area. It was that bad. It was like 4 hours long.
Yeah, I got drug tested. I got randomly selected for drug testing after that game too. That was a long day. And then the bus home left without I was talking to my dad, and the bus just started pulling out. The bus home left without me, so I got to drive back with my dad. But good day.
We were talking, not to be on like a tangent, we were talking about the drug testing thing when we were waiting for teams to come in after like the Richmond Cornell game, and like another guy was there was like, can you imagine being a Richmond senior right now and somebody's just like, hey, you got to go take a drug test for the NCAA right now?
Yeah,
like in that, like, man. I'd be trying to test positive for everything under the sun. I'd be like, I hate you guys. I hate doing this.
I mean, I'm an off-ball Canadian midi. You think I'm taking steroids? I'll take my shirt off. You think I'm fucking taking steroids? What are you, nuts?
Oh man.
I don't look like a single other player on this
so that the NCAA has it so the team that loses has to go second in the post-game thing. You got to wait. You got to sit there and wait for the winning team to do their post game, and then you can do yours, and then you can get drug tested, and then your season's over. God, that's brutal.
Yep. It's tough. So, this is gonna be like, feels like there's no way Syracuse wins a low scoring game, and little way that Maryland wins a high scoring game. This is going to. I could see this being a blowout either way. Like. Maybe not a blowout if it's low scoring, but like this feels like it's going to go one of two ways. And of course, the unexpected can happen. We already talked about that. That's why you play the games. But Cornell, Penn State kind of feels like how that game is going to go. You just don't know who's going to be on top. This one really just feels like a test of a battle of styles, and whoever can influence the game to their style is going to win. So
yeah. I feel like it's like Maryland wins 10-9 or Syracuse wins 18-13. You know what I mean? Like
right.
I think the matchups individually, like I always look for what Coach Oderna is going to be trying to do to mix up and how he's going to cover this Maryland team. As we keep saying, it's hard to cover because I don't think when you start preparing for Maryland, you can just be like Figueres on Spanos and Dwan on Kelly or whoever you want to bump him to Ford, whoever. Like you just can't think of it that way of just like this guy on this guy and this guy on this guy. Like you need to be comfortable with matchup switching so you can just try and stay in the scheme and the shape that you think gives you the best chance of success. And you can't get like hung up on this guy's got to guard this guy or else we're in trouble, or we got to like slide early to this guy or else we're in trouble. So like the balance that he has to strike there, I think is interesting. And I'm always like curious to see the way he schemes, and anybody really schemes for teams like Maryland, where there's no clear and obvious, like if you take away this guy, you're off to a good start.
Yeah, curious if some junk comes too. No one's really throwing it at Maryland. Is there a short stick on the attackman? Is is someone going to play a lot of zone? If they're going to stay in man, the Cuse rope has to be better than they were against Princeton. Like, period. Yeah. They got run by way too many times, and that's a very talented Princeton midfield. But the Maryland unit's good too. They can't give up 6 goals to Chad Palumbo. They can't let Keegan go off for 6 goals. And Maryland's got guys that are capable, so the rope's going to have to be better. They're going to have to manage it. It's obviously the weather's going to be cold, but Memorial Day weekend, you see the fatigue really start to set in. You guys played a lot of lacrosse. Cuse doesn't play a lot of guys in that rope unit, so it'll be interesting to watch. I would expect something junky from Cuse on defense, at least to have it in the reserve. Like, why not? And I also think they'll probably try to throw some curveballs at Maryland. Just throw a shutoff at them. Like, let's see what happens if we shut off Spanos and we play 5-on-5. Or we shut off Urxa and we play 5-on-5. Yeah, you saw that in the Albany game. We talked about this, but like, just shut somebody random. Like, I actually think that is a pretty good idea. And then, as we mentioned, the clears thing, Maryland basically not riding. I think that actually is pretty good for Cuse because they stink at clearing still, and
it saves Sam English's legs. He doesn't have to punt return it 14 times a game.
Right, and Cuse will try to ride back some against Maryland. Maryland makes 0 mistakes in the clear, or very few. In the clear. So that'll be something kind of interesting to watch there. But I would expect the Syracuse clear Maryland ride to be pretty uneventful. Like, Maryland has like one of the lowest ride back percentage in the whole country. Like, statistically, they're like the worst riding team because they're just making decisions to play elsewhere. They're also the best defensive team because they don't give up any transition and they play 6-on-6. So it's it is what it is there.
Yeah, they will just sub their guys behind the play. They'll get their insane rope unit on, and they'll pick you up at the midfield line and be like, all right, let's see if you can score now.
Yep.
Probably can't.
So you're going, it sounds like, to Boston for the weekend?
I will be there. I'm going to leave Saturday morning, so I'll be there for the duration on Saturday, the 2-game Saturday. I am going to be dialed in for the triple header on Sunday. That should be quite the party. And then Monday is the big finale.
Awesome. It's, man, what a weekend for the sport. And I'm excited for it. I will not be there, at least not Saturday. I'll be in Albany with PLL camp. We'll be watching. Not sure exactly what our podcast schedule is going to be like here. I think probably next week we'll hopefully do a wrap-up of some sort, but just stay tuned to our socials and whatnot, and make sure you comment, follow, and subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to this. And yeah, man, thanks for doing this, and enjoy the weekend. And we'll talk to everybody soon.
All right.